I'm Ahmed Al-Tahan, a researcher in the timeline of creation in the Quran. Our topic today is to speak about how the universe started. There were many theories were made in this concern by the scientists in the past 10, 20, 30 years. I will take one of them today, which is done by Professor Lawrence Krauss in his book, A Universe from Nothing. Briefly, he talked about the virtual particles when the universe was at its quantum stage. The virtual particles, according to his theories, is like the video game. You can see those figures in the game, you can move them through the buttons, but they cannot be part of our reality. They are just virtual, separated by the screen of the laptop or whatever screen you are using. And you can move them through that, but they are not part of our world. Now, he tried to find out how these virtual particles, which are, instead of the game, they were particles, subparticles. We can see them, but they cannot come into our world. He tried to figure out how these subparticles could pop up in our universe. Well, as in this stage of the quantum stage of the universe, there was no space-time, and the Big Bang didn't start yet. Okay, how he described that this happened, how did they pop up? He said as long as these subparticles are virtual and they are in their quantum stage, the superforce or the forces of the universe, like the gravity, were at that quantum stage as well. He assumed that these subparticles, virtual subparticles, were in touch with the virtual or with the quantum gravity. So as the gravity did its job during the Big Bang and could make the inflation and could bring the atoms, create the atoms, or create the space-time curvature, they could attract these subparticles, these virtual subparticles, and make them pop up in our universe. This way, he created a theory that the universe could be started without a creator, and a brilliant idea on how this universe started. It's just the quantum stage, and these are the properties of the quantum stage as they find them out when studying them. Now, I want to confront this idea by Professor Lawrence Krauss with a pioneer scientist, Islamic scientist. His name is Imam Ali, and his book, he left us letters in his book named Nahj al-Balagha. Well, the Islamic world discuss such stages of the universe based on the Kitab. The Kitab is a book revealed on Musa, Messenger Musa, a copy of it revealed on Messenger Muhammad, BBUH, and the Imam Ali described these ayat of the kitab by Musa alayhi salam and Messenger Muhammad. Muslims didn't copy what the Christians or the Jews has in their Bible. What we have is an authentic copy by Messenger Musa revealed on him, and there is a authentic copy revealed on Muhammad on what was revealed on Musa. So whatever Musa had, Messenger Muhammad had exactly the same. It is a timeline of creation. The timeline cannot be copied. If you dictate from other people, it will interfere with their ideas and the timeline will be changed, will not be the same. The timeline is as Musa had, Messenger Muhammad had, and they are a true copy, authentic copy of each other. It's impossible to have a timeline as perfect as it should be, with no difference, like from the steps of creation from the start of the universe to its end. That's a huge timeline. It's impossible for any person to just copy it and say, oh, the Quran is a copy of the Bible. That's not true. Just you go do it, just search the timeline and find yourself whether this is possible or not. It is impossible to copy the kitab, which is part of the Quran, revealed on Musa, and an authentic copy revealed on Messenger Muhammad of the same everything. That is impossible to be dictated or to be said by different people. Now, these two messengers had the kitab on Musa, then a copy of it revealed on Messenger Muhammad in the Quran. The Quran is a divine word. Imam Ali described what the kitab says about these creations. Well, I will go briefly to what he said in concern of this stage that Professor Krauss is talking about. Well, he proved, and maybe they say we don't have a proof, there is no divine or there is no creator, but he tries his best to prove that, like, this is the science, this is what we are seeing. Okay, I believe this, or I believe there is some divine power that did that. Surely I believe this is what I find, and all the scientists say, yes, this is the right thing. Well, that's his thing. But let's go back briefly to what Imam Ali said. Imam Ali was raised by Messenger Muhammad and lived at his time. The Messenger Muhammad and the Islam started at the time when the West civilization followed Ptolemy theory of starting the universe. So let me tell you what they said, and you compare it with Ptolemy science and see which is more civilized at that stage, the West civilization or the Islamic civilization. Well, Imam Ali described the ayat of the kitab of this stage, the quantum stage of creation, saying that the primary things of this universe were created and categorized. Some of them were come along with each other. Some of them are different. So those come along, they were categorized in a region, and those others that come along with each other as well, they were categorized in other region. So they were classified into many regions. Each region has its own coming together primary things. They were the primary things of the primordial water, and they were the primary things of the super force, the energies, and there were the primary things of the living creatures. The categorization before they come into this world were like this. They had their properties in, they had their ghosts. The ghosts are kind of energy that cannot be observed, cannot be seen. It is attached to them, and when it is off, these primary things, they cannot be alive and cannot have their motion. Well, these primary things created before the quantum stage. To start the quantum stage, there was a crack in the skies and the earth. The skies and the earth is the galaxies. This stage of the crack happened something like a cloud, thick cloud, has all these primary things in, but not able to split or to spill out of it any drop of them. But when this cloud just got lighter, these subparticles or primary things could spill out of it in this universe created bubble. Now, what happened at this stage? At this stage, the ghosts turned on, and when these primary things started to enter this universe bubble, they had their properties on, they had their weights on, and they started to interact with each other. At this stage, there is no space-time curvature, there is no Big Bang yet. At this stage, these subparticles interacted with each other. It is a quantum stage. It is the virtual stage of the universe. And in this stage, those interacting subparticles or primary things, some of them came along with each other, had resonance. Some of them repelled each other and annihilated each other. So at the end of this stage, the space-time curvature created. But we don't want to go that far because Professor Krauss didn't go that far. He was talking about the virtual particles and how they did pop up in our world. Now, in this stage, before the creating of the space-time curvature, there were the primordial water's primary things. They are the virtual subparticles of the universe at this stage of the quantum stage. And he assumed that the superforce also was in such a quantum stage in the universe. Now let me explain how he said, how Imam Ali described when these subparticles enter this universe bubble, how did they behave? Because they had their weights and they had their properties, the heavier went into the center of the bubble, then they were followed by stormy wind. It is an inflator stormy wind. This stormy wind surrounded the heaviest ones, which were the super force, and on top of that stormy wind were the primordial water subparticles. It is I don't know how it is not easy like to show it. Anyways, I wanted to show you how Imam Ali described the universe at that stage, but it seems like it's not easy to show it to you. Professor Krauss imagined that the quantum stage primary things or subparticles were in touch with the primary stage or quantum stage of the superforce, one of them the gravity. When they were in touch with each other at that quantum stage, as they behaved and became active, the gravity became active as well, but in the level of the quantum mechanics. And as they do, the gravity, as it do attract the subparticles after the Big Bang or during the Big Bang, at this quantum stage, they did the same. They were in touch and they started to attract the virtual particles, made them pop up. So the strongest ones will pop up and stay in the created interface that the gravity started, and those that are weaker pop off or pop back to the virtual stage they were in. So with the strong force of the gravity at that stage, of that quantum stage, so many of the virtual subparticles popped up and became real in our world. That's how Professor Krauss described it. Now we compare it to what Imam Ali said. Imam Ali said that the heaviest went into the center of the bubble, which were the superforce. This superforce was surrounded by a stormy wind. On top of the stormy wind were the primordial water or the virtual particles at their primordial water stage or quantum stage. Now, this stormy wind is a separator between the superforce and the primordial water. This stormy wind surrounded the superforce, was a separator between the primordial water and the superforce. That means the interaction between them was impossible. The gravity at its quantum stage can never attract any of the virtual subparticles and bring it into this world by itself. It needed a certain force stronger than the stormy wind, okay, to let it attract these virtual subparticles. How did that happen? It all happened by one wind energy. A wind energy created after the annihilation of what is known as the matter and antimatter. This spark of annihilation, when it when it turned off, it left a wind blow. Every annihilation happened between two matter and antimatter. There was a wind blow left after they puffed off. So these wind blows accumulated. These wind blows of the sparks had their sources sterilized. They don't exist, so they were sterilized wind blows. And they are accumulative because each of the two of the matter and antimatter annihilate each other, a wind blow exists. When this happens, this wind blows, or these wind blows, each one of them, when it exists, it frees one of the, you name it, graviton, one of the subparticles of the superforce of the gravity, creating the space-time. And every time one of the matter and antimatter annihilate each other, another graviton is combined with the space subparticle, creating the space-time, until the space-time completely existed. At this stage, this force or these wind blows were not strong enough to make the gravity attract the virtual subparticles. It just created the space-time. To start making the virtual particles as real particles pop up in this world, these wind blows has to be stormy and strong. When they become stormy and strong, they become powerful enough to break the super forces from each other, split them, and to make the virtual particles pop up in our world, which is this space-time created. Like according to Professor Krauss, it cannot happen by disregarding the stage of creating the space-time. It cannot just in one time they pop in and the space-time exists and the gravity split. That's just a big mess. The right thing is that the space-time is created first, and by the force of that, these accumulatives wind blows, and when these wind blows became strong enough to split and start the inflation, starting the Big Bang, they split the gravity and expanded the space-time and making the virtual particles to pop in where this inside the space-time created. Well, this is the idea how Imam Ali described it. It was like 600 after death, year 600 after death, 63 of the Hijri year. So it's like 14 or more than 1400 years. He described it this way. He described the stage that Professor Krauss, imagining it or giving his theory on it, imagining that there is no creator for the universe. And he named the messengers like Musa and Muhammad and all the people who lived surrounding him were just shepherds. How could be shepherds come out with such ideas. Please refer to Imam Ali book, the first letter, The Creation of the Universe. His book is named Nahj al-Balagha. There are copies in English as well. So read it and try to understand it. You will find this person, more than 1400 years, described better than what Professor Krauss said. We cannot, no one can avoid the creation of the space-time and just right away the virtual particles pop up. Pop up in where? There is nothing there. Just there were super force in a quantum stage, and there were these subparticles in their virtual stage, in their quantum stages. Okay, when they pop up where? I wish he tell us where did they pop up when the gravity in its quantum stage attracted these subparticles. Now think of what Imam Ali said. There were virtual, there was no space-time curvature. The space-time curvature was created by first the virtual particles and the virtual superforce were separated by stormy wind, inflator wind, that prevented any touch between them until when the annihilation happened, and a product of it was the accumulative sparks sterilized wind blows. These wind blows could split gravitons of the gravity from the superforce and combine it with the time subparticles, creating the space-time. After creating the space-time, they became strong and stormy to split the forces from each other. When that happened, the space-time expanded, and when expanded, with splitting the gravity first, you call it inflation. When the gravity split, it could attract the virtual particles in this space-time. So I find this the description given by Imam Ali are more perfect than what Professor Krauss is saying. So please just think it over and go back to what he said and compare your theory. If you are listening to me, maybe one time you will try to listen to me, so you compare what he said to what you theorized. Find your mistakes from there. Maybe you will reach to the fact how the universe started. This is the end of our video, and thank you for your listening. Thank you very much.